At a late lunch, you never know when it's going to kick in, you know?
All right, we ready?
It's official. I've banged the gavel. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jesse, if you'll proceed with the roll call.
Member Horning?
Present.
Member Gershenlauer? And he has an unexcused absence for the record. Member Bryant? Here. Member Lamug?
Here.
Member Vice Chair Stark?
Here.
Member Jones?
Here.
Chair Clark?
Present.
Member Esteele?
Here.
And Member Day? And Member Day has an unexcused absence for the record. And I also want to welcome Trevor Esteele to our board.
Thank you.
And he will be a voting member this evening.
All right. Thank you. And since you covered the opening business, Trevor, did you have anything you'd like to say? Introduction, anything?
Trevor Estill, my wife and I own Garage Bar downtown. Been a resident of St. Cloud for close to 20 years now. We love the community. We do everything that we can to try to help preserve some of the history that's here. There is quite a lot. So I want to be a part of that.
Great. Well, thank you.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Next order of business would be the approval of the minutes from October 12th. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes, and are there any comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, on the report where we're talking about the tax incentives for the state of Florida, the representative's name that is from Pensacola is spelled S-A-L-Z-M-A-N. Just in case, for the record, someone wanted to look that up, they wouldn't find it under that spelling.
Okay. And then I had another correction I think that needs to be made, Jesse, on the page 2 under the second bolded paragraph where a motion was made on the certificate of appropriateness application. It was made, it was seconded, and there was discussion, but we did not vote on it before the amendment to the motion was made. So if you can strike that sentence, the motion passed 7-0 with all members.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Under that first
Okay.
paragraph, then that would be correct for what happened.
I think that was a copy and paste issue. And then changing the
eye.
wording.
I have no problem throwing Microsoft Word under the bus. All
My
right.
apologies. Yes, I will get that corrected.
All right. Are there any other corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
A motion to approve with the corrections has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose likewise. The minutes have been approved. Don't have any items of old business on the agenda, so we'll go forward with new business.
Good evening, everyone. The first thing that I wanted to talk to you all about tonight, and this is going to be very brief because we do have a lot of things that we have to iron out about this, is something that Vice Chair Stark brought up at the last meeting, which is the potential of a plaque program. So I am still working on that, and that is something that I do have to meet with city leadership and kind of go through all those details and how that is actually going to be presented to the board, how it's going to be presented to citizens, and when we're actually going to unveil that as a project for the board. So there's certain things that we have to look at, like legal review on certain items. We will once we do a plaque program, when that does get implemented, we will have to have a process by which if someone's not maintaining their building that a plaque is on, that we can get the plaque back and all of that. So there's some legal things related to this in the application that we do have to work through. But I did want to let you all know that it is being worked on and that that will be forthcoming to the board for discussion, review, and for voting on. So that item right there is pretty brief. The next thing that I have on here actually is the board meeting schedule for 2022. But before we get into that, I want to talk about the board meeting schedule for the rest of 2021 and to make a request to the board that we actually hold a meeting on December 14th. We have received some applications for projects. One application of which will definitely need to be going before the board. And rather than having the applicant wait till January, it would be much better if we could start the year fresh and have this done at the December meeting. So that was one question, is to ask if the board would be willing to entertain the introduction of a December meeting date on December 14th, and to just see if we would potentially have a quorum for that meeting. I know we're getting into the holidays, so it gets a little tricky. So that would be the second Tuesday in December.
I would be here.
Okay.
I can be here.
I have a question. So is there just going to be one item under that on December 14th that we're going to be looking at? Or will there be other homes or houses?
There's potentially more than one item. What we're trying to do is, because there's been kind of, changes here and there with staff and different things with city processes, as we kind of organize this stuff and get it all together, we're trying to make sure that everything that was put in for 2021 is fully done and behind us in 2021. Okay. So at a minimum, for sure, one, but we might uncover more, and that's what we're in the process of looking at right now.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Do we need a motion to change that, or just a consensus?
I would like to, just to be official, have a motion.
Okay,
Sorry.
That's okay. I'll make a motion to add the December 14th Historic Preservation Board meeting.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of establishing a December 14th board meeting signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed likewise? You
Carries
passed. You've
7-0.
got your date. You can
Thank
get it
you.
publicly announced, and
That'll be wonderful. Did we establish that we would have a quorum based on the feedback from the
I'm
members?
a maybe, just because if I have to be in the field, I may be in Okeechobee, but it's 50-50 right now.
Okay.
I'll be here.
so we'll just need to confirm then with
Yep, I'll be
because we
here.
need
I'll be here.
6.
Yeah, and with the other members.
Maybe one of the other members will be here.
Yeah.
So-
Well, we need 4.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I was
if
going
you
to say
only
we
need
have
4.
7.
We've got 5 then,
You'll
Okay.
definitely
Yeah,
have
so
a quorum.
I think we'll have a quorum.
I'll be
and
here.
technically we have 6 with the alternates, so we're good.
I may be bringing a Christmas preservation goodie bag to you all. Just saying, if that makes a difference in whether or not you go.
You'll take all the calories out first, right?
Right, yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Just don't count over the holidays, just.
Right, that's my philosophy.
Yeah.
Birthdays and holidays.
Tell my waistline that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we got that bit of business out of the way, I did want to talk about the board meeting schedule for 2022, and I have a proposed schedule for you all. As we talked about last month, to accomplish the business of the board and all the goals and objectives that you all want to achieve, that you've planned in past meetings and discussed, but not really made much progress on, it's going to be really important for this board to try to meet kind of monthly. I say kind of monthly because 12 meetings a year is a lot, but if we can do at least 10 meetings of the year, that would be really beneficial. One thing I'm also going to propose to you all is to entertain meeting an hour earlier, if that is at all possible, and I'm going to explain to you why. And I understand if you can't, so this is just a discussion. First of all, your Historic Preservation Ordinance 2016-55 requires that the board meet at least 4 times a year at regular intervals. So that's something that you have to do. We know that. So we're expanding this beyond that. And as I said, monthly meetings are needed to achieve the board's goals and objectives. The reason that I was proposing meeting an hour earlier is that gives the board an opportunity to actually have a work session. So you all have a lot of goals and objectives that you've articulated in the past. That's going to be something that's going to be an information item at your December meeting, is actually handing back to you the goals and objectives you talked about in the past. You'll have that in December, so you can kind of look at that over the course of the next month until January, and then come the January meeting, we're actually going to establish the goals and objectives for 2022. So between December and January, when you get those, actually, we don't need to wait till December to give it to you. We could give it to you earlier, but that gives you an opportunity to email me questions where I could work with city staff and just kind of discuss things and actually start getting a sense of what your priorities are for each board member. So that way, when we come to the January meeting, the discussion flows a little bit easier. We actually have some kind of template in place that we could suggest to the board. But yes.
Yes, with regard to the November 8th meeting for 2022, that's a federal election day.
Oh, is it November? Okay.
So we may want to give some thought to that.
That's appreciated because it's my birthday.
It's your birthday?
That's why she wanted
my
the meeting,
daughter's
so we
birthday.
bring her birthday
Yeah,
presents.
we're hoping we'd have a party, weren't you?
Do you tell your daughter that places are closed because it's her birthday? That's what my dad told me when I was growing up, and I thought Election Day was a holiday for me. It was like, I was
Yes,
that big, though.
But I just looked it up, and it's the federal election day, and I don't know when Osceola County's election day is, but it is a federal, the midterm election.
Thank you for having that on your radar. So having said that, I would propose maybe looking at the following week,
Okay.
which would be,
7 days later would be the 15th.
The 15th?
November 15th. So I can change that as the suggestion.
I think that would make more sense. Seems like I brought that up last year, too.
Thank you.
Well, today's an election day.
It is. But it's almost over. And it's just in our city.
Yeah, but it matters.
It does matter.
That's why we don't have the crowd.
That's right.
They're all voting.
I hope, I would wish that
One would
was
wish
the
that would be
reason.
true. One would wish that.
So in regards to this idea of meeting an hour earlier, the monthly work sessions provide an opportunity for the board to work on the objectives. Because think about it, as you start getting busier with looking at applications, your meeting time is going to kind of be chewed up by some of that. And I have this kind of excerpt from your ordinance. It says, persons serving on the HPB are encouraged to attend educational meetings or workshops to develop a special interest, expertise, experience, or knowledge in preservation, architecture, or quasi-judicial boards. So it is in your ordinance to make education and training a priority. And this is an opportunity where you don't have to go outside of the board meeting to actually get that training. We would actually do it inside the board meeting in the work session. So the work session could cover any kind of topics from presentations on architectural styles to history of St. Cloud, and trainings on topics that are related to things that you're working on for your objectives. So say if marketing is one of your objectives, a work session could be dedicated just to developing a marketing plan and working on a marketing plan. So that would be the reason for the extra hour to do the work session prior to the meetings. And I know that might not work for everybody's schedule, but I just wanted to see if this is even a possibility that the board would entertain.
So you wanted to do every meeting time period to have a 1 hour work session prior to?
Yes. And of course, just to make a point, if there is a meeting that we don't have any applications or any business for the meeting, we could move the work session time or just keep the work session time and only have the work session. You know, we could rearrange things a little bit.
Well, if you have the work session beforehand, it would happen then. But
Yes.
Yes, I served on a board where we routinely had work sessions every month. They weren't, sometimes they were prior to a meeting, but sometimes they were at a noon time, and it depended on what the subject was and if people from other departments needed to come and discuss issues with us. But I think before a meeting, especially when staff would more likely to be available then, especially if they were coming from other departments, to give us information or presentations would be good.
And one of the things about the work session too in your meetings is they're open to the public. So there's going to be some work sessions that we might put together, say if it's a training on architecture, that the board could actually advertise to the community as being a Historic Preservation Board presentation. And so now you're getting the citizens in on whatever you all are learning. So that's something where certain topics, you know, you all may, as we start ironing this out, like today I want to set the meeting schedule. In December, I want to set our meeting plan. So if you all do say tonight, let's go ahead and say, yes, we're going to have work sessions, then in December, I'd like to actually outline what most of those are going to be for 2022, because then you might say 3 of those or 4 of those are ones that you really want to market to your citizens as well. And not just in your historic districts, but anywhere in St. Cloud that may have an interest in historic properties, we should welcome them to attend.
Will these be treated like 2 separate things? So if for some reason we're running late and we can't make the work session, but we can still make the regular meeting, are we good to be able to do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because your ordinance is requiring you to be at the board meeting, so this would be something additional.
But not work sessions.
So can I make a motion to approve the schedule as long as the work session and the meeting are counted as 2 separate things for that? Because I do, can I make a motion to?
Well, hold on, I have one. I was just reminded that the 15th is Planning Commission.
Okay.
And the adjustment, I guess I can.
You want to do the 1st?
Don't they meet later?
They meet at 6.
Is it, the notification I got for this next week said 6:30.
The one that starts at 6:30 is Board of Adjustment.
Well,
Planning Commission starts at 6.
what
Okay.
about the 1st?
The 1st?
I thought,
Yeah.
did you say the 15th?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought we said December 14th.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, we said
Oh, the 14th? Oh, I thought it was the 15th, the next Tuesday,
The following Tuesday
the following Tuesday,
for December of is,
November.
No, it would be in 2022.
I'm looking, that is
Oh,
the
November
15th.
15th. I'm
That
sorry.
is the 15th.
Yeah, the,
The November 8th.
So
Almost a
when-
year further.
So when you make the motion, why don't we treat these separate? Well, we didn't do the one for the December meeting yet, right? Yeah, so let's just finish
We-
out for 2021.
We approved
Yeah,
adding
that's
the
what I-
December meeting.
Okay.
We're on the discussion as far
So
as
now-
what the proposed schedule is. So she could make the motion. I mean,
So can I make the motion to approve the proposed 2022 schedule with the exception of November? We need to decide what November date is going to be, but that we do the work session at 5 and then the meeting at 6, as long as they're separate, so our members can, if they can't make it, they can attend.
I have a motion to, who was seconded?
Big mouth.
All right. Further discussion.
Yes, I have
Olive.
I have something I need to say. I'm diabetic, and so I'm going to have, we have these 2 sessions, I'm going to have a snack. I'll die. Not that I'll die,
not
but you
allowed.
don't want to pick me up as I go out.
You're not allowed to die, pass out, do any of those things. Sorry.
Okay. So I may need to bring a sandwich or half a sandwich or something to nibble on, not during this meeting, but, maybe at the end of the work session. And
Are we assuming that the work sessions are not televised? They're public, open to the public, but we're not televising them, correct?
That would probably be a question for Jesse. Are they normally?
There is a link on the website.
So generally, when I do the work sessions, I try to give you a buffer to be able to get up and go to the restroom and do different things. So I will usually try to end that work session by, 5:45. So that'll give you 15 minutes between that and the regular meeting. Yes, ma'am.
Member Jones, you have your hand up.
I'm wiggling it too.
Oh, I just,
When, I'm always referring to when we did it. When we had our work sessions, we ate during them because they were often at noon, or if it was before our meeting because our meeting started at 6 also, and the staff would bring in food for us, and it would be off in a conference room. We would go get it and bring it around the dais, and while the work session was going on, we'd be eating.
yep. See, I'm trying to get you out of having to provide food for them.
Right. You
But
don't
if
have to
that's the reason
provide
I asked if it's televised, because if it's televised, I don't want to be advertising, for anybody what I'm eating, drinking, or whatever, and definitely don't want having people doing screenshots of me with my mouth full of
then
food.
you can starve. But for those of us that need to nibble,
Yeah, I don't think they allow food up here anyway.
Oh, don't
It'd have to be before the meeting in the back, yeah.
So is it reasonable then to wrap it up and make sure that whenever we do have a work session, we wrap it up by 5:45 and then you're back here at 6? Does that give you all enough time?
yeah, then we could take a little break.
Okay.
So a 45-minute work session scheduled 1 hour prior. I don't know that we need to make an amendment to the motion, so is there any further discussion?
No.
All right. All
Great.
those in favor of the motion to accept the proposed schedule, with the exception of the November meeting still to be worked out, signify by saying aye.
Okay. But point of order, did we have a second to that motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Member Jones
Member
did.
Jones.
Okay.
And
Mouth.
opposed signify likewise. Motion passes. You have
7-0.
You now have a established schedule and
I think
with one tentative day.
I think you all are going to be real happy about that. And I just want to make a note that the May meeting is earlier in May, and that's a great thing because May is National Preservation Month. So it gives an opportunity, I would say definitely, at least that one meeting in May is to really make it about the citizens and about the community. This could be something that potentially, even with the May meeting, might be, depending on what we have for applications and all, could potentially be like a hands-on training or workshop where we actually have citizens and we're actually doing things. So I'll be thinking about what is something that we could really have fun with in May to kind of recognize Preservation Month. And any of these other months, if you all have anything special that you think of that you want to see a training for, or anything that you feel like you all need education on, reach out to me and suggest some topics for me, because that's what I'm looking for. Otherwise, I'm going to come up with them. So if there's something you're already thinking about, let me know, okay? Okay.
Next item, a new business, C, the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions overview.
Oh, what'd I just do?
It's a mouthful.
Why does it keep, there we go. Yes. It is a mouthful, and those of us in the industry, we just refer to this organization as NAPC. NAPC is the organization that is basically the nonprofit for preservation commissions. And I wanted you to know about this resource because any community that you encounter, a lot of times they tend to think that issues that they face are so unique to their community. But when you start looking out across the United States, you realize all these preservation commissions have been through all these different cases, all these different challenges. They've worked on projects, they've had successes, and so they're a really, really good resource. They do an annual conference, they do a conference every 2 years, and they usually partner their conferences with the state preservation nonprofit. We haven't heard back yet, but potentially their next conference might be in Florida, and they might be partnering with the Florida Trust for Historic Preservation. So we have our fingers crossed on that, and I will keep you posted on that. If it is in Florida and we get to kind of be involved in that, I will definitely let you all in the know on that, because I am also a trustee of the Florida Trust, and I'm on the conference committee and the programs and education committee. So that would be something that I'll be heavily involved in. But I can't say enough great things about this organization. This organization is for board members. It's for citizens who are volunteering their time to serve their community, and everything that this organization does is geared toward that. So some of the things, so I guess I should back up and say, I reached out to the deputy city manager, and I asked her if we can get a membership for the entire board to access all the resources of NAPC, and that did get approved. So each one of you are, through the board, members of NAPC now. So having said that, just to give you a little bit of an idea of the kind of resources they have out there, they have a listserv, so you can post questions. If you know, see a building in your town, it's like, you know, this building's been vacant and we're looking for good uses and it's in this location. What kind of projects have you had in your town? Then it gives an opportunity for everybody to kind of show you projects that they've done. So there's a lot of discussion on this listserv of success stories. There's a lot of discussion of legal issues, which we're going to get to in the next part of this meeting, and just a lot of really, really good information exchange. And a lot of times that's helpful in a project where if we see something that's similar, it's like, how did you deal with it? So the first thing is that listserv. And what I would like for you with this membership is for each one of you to email Jessie and let her know, because we have to associate your preferred email address that you want to receive these emails to. And if you want to opt out and not see these listserv emails, also let Jessie know that. But let her know, then we'll get you connected. We'll get you your membership number and all of that so you can actually go there. Once you're added to the listserv, you're going to automatically get the emails. They're not going to send you 50 emails a day. They're going to send you a compilation, and then you could scroll through and see the different topics and click through if something is of interest to you. And this will make more sense when you actually get the first email and see it. So make sure that you give Jessie that information. But the resources on the NAPC website, which I have right up here, if you see the resources tab there, they have design guidelines. And design guidelines are one of the major objectives that the city has right now, is to develop design guidelines for the board, because right now all you're doing is working with the Secretary of the Interior standards, which are a little vague. You really do want to have design guidelines established. So they have a lot of good examples of design guidelines on there. So I would say whenever you have the opportunity to kind of click around and look at what other communities have for design guidelines and start getting a sense of what you might want your design guidelines to look like. They also have good examples of preservation plans, which is a goal to have in the future, and it's actually one of the goals that you all have articulated in the past. The one section that I find most useful as a preservation professional working with boards is the technical assistance section. And so the things that are in that section are things related to preservation law. There's things related to building code, which quite often when you're getting into rehab projects, that's really important. Demolition by neglect. Do you all know what demolition by neglect is?
No.
Yes. You ignore it until it falls down?
No, I know what neglect is.
So demolition by neglect is actually a strategy that a lot of times investors, but sometimes private property owners employ, where they just neglect their historic building, and you know, all of a sudden it's so far gone that they go to the municipality, and it's in a historic district, and then they go to the municipality and say, my building's such a mess, I had an engineer come out here and says the building's not salvageable, so I have no other choice but to demolish it. And so basically, demolition by neglect, if you don't have a provision in your ordinance for demolition by neglect, it's almost like a reward for bad behavior. So and this is something as we look at your ordinance and we start updating your ordinance, a demolition by neglect ordinance and your provision actually calls that out and says, you know, we have a demolition by neglect provision in our ordinance, and it gives an opportunity for code enforcement not to just write up a building for, you know, deterioration, like under the normal code that code enforcement would normally use, but they would specifically cite the historic preservation ordinance. And what that does is it puts it on the paper trail of the property that you've got a code violation relative to this, and that way if somebody decides not to take action and then 3 years later they come to the city asking to be able to demolish the building, the city can point to the code enforcement record and say, you didn't do anything with the building. Well, then sometimes that happens and the property owner says, actually, yeah, I did. Then the city could say, where are your building permits? we don't have any record of your building permits or your approvals. And so if this escalates to outside of the city into like a civil court, then they have that record that shows from a legal perspective that the city did everything that they should, that they're not going to reward the building owner with a demolition. Instead, they're going to require, no matter how expensive it is, for that building owner to rehab the building. So that's the strength of having a demolition by neglect provision in your ordinance. And so NAPC has all kinds of information on demolition by neglect in this technical assistance section. Does that make sense, what I just explained about demolition by neglect? It is a strategy that I see a lot. Not going to name names, but there was a church in downtown Orlando in Lake Eola Heights that the church was given a historic property, and they just kind of didn't do anything with it for a couple of years. And then, I don't know how those holes showed up in the roof, but now there's holes in the roof. And then, and then before you know it, they were asking for a demolition. Same thing happened with the Bellevue Biltmore. I don't know if you all were familiar with that project. It was one of the last great wooden hotels, like beautiful, beautiful. And the developer wanted to do condos there. Same thing. Mysteriously, holes appeared in the roof. No action was taken. Wood frame building. Eventually, they said, look at how far gone it is. We've had all these professional engineers come out and say the building can't be saved. So demolition by neglect helps at least to provide some kind of legal, framework within your ordinance that would help for that not to happen. The other things that this technical assistance section has is information on new construction, information on potential use of alternative materials. So if you want to look at maybe using different materials and not just sticking to what was available when the building was built, which is a touchy topic. They've got a resource for window restoration, and then other information they have out there is things like researching a historic property or dealing with asbestos. So, if property owners come to you and they have questions, this is a resource that you can refer to them to. So that's something I really want you to get on that website and poke around and look at it and become familiar with it. They also have a quarterly magazine called the Alliance Review. And we'll see if we could get that downloaded and sent to you, or maybe even have print the copies, because it's not a very long publication. But it's a nice thing to be able to look at and see what other communities are doing. And it's also a nice thing for you all to set as a goal to have your board featured in the Alliance Review, which would be wonderful. So I think that if you all, if we do all the things that we're planning to do in 2022, and we have a plan put together and all of that, that's a great thing to propose as an article for the Alliance Review, is like, look at what our board has done in a year. So that might be a goal that you all want to make. I don't know. Does anybody have any questions about NAPC?
Not at this time.
Okay, great.
And Christine, if I'm not mistaken, I believe I have enrolled everyone in that. I'm not sure if everyone's received the email. If not, I can look into that.
Okay, so you already did.
Yeah, I believe I did. I sent them a list of all the emails and names.
Okay, so they have them as members, and she did verify that with me, but we need to make sure that because you have to actually go in and request to be put on the list for the emails. Okay. So their membership is active. That's been verified, and you did send that.
Oh, but it's a separate thing for the,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
it's not,
okay.
they don't want to just send people emails without people asking for them first.
Okay, I see.
And that's why I was saying, you may have enrolled them with the emails you have, but just let's make sure that if they want to see these emails, that it's the address that they want it sent to.
Okay.
I know for me, I have multiple emails, and I have an email that I have this type of stuff sent to. That way it doesn't bog down my work emails.
Okay, got it.
So that's
yeah,
why.
so if members, if you guys want to just, whatever email address you want those emails sent to, just provide that to me. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So the next thing, we're at 6:35, so we're doing really, really good. The next thing that I wanted to talk about before we get into our next meeting, where we actually have applications to review, is Robert's Rules of Order and Motions. And so I do have it up here. Okay. So basically what Robert's Rules of Order are parliamentary procedure. And it's basically a process by which you're conducting yourselves at meetings, which you all are already following, and you're doing a good job. I have did you hand this out to them already, Jesse?
They have it in front
Okay.
of them.
I have a little cheat sheet here. This should help you when you're getting into motions and, additional information is needed or you want to correct a motion or whatever. I just say probably bring this with you to each meeting. And the reason why I like to get into this early on is you all are a quasi-judicial board. You're making decisions relative to private property. And so this is, boards get sued. Board members get sued. I mean, this is something that happens. So the cleaner we can keep everything from the outset, the better. So this is something that I wanted you to take this with you, review it, let me know if you have any questions, but definitely we should have a sheet like this here at the meetings. And don't feel, what I like to say is try not to be rushed when you're in conversation and you're making motions and you have to pause something. It's better to take the extra couple of seconds or a minute to actually reference the sheet and do it right. So that way later, someone who might be aggrieved by a decision of the board doesn't feel like they have something to, sink their teeth into. I'm actually going to tell you a story and give you some examples so that way this all makes sense, why I'm so serious about it. And motion. So when you look at this, Merriam-Webster dictionary has a definition of quasi-judicial, having a partly judicial character by possession of the right to hold hearings on and conduct investigation into disputed claims and alleged infractions of rules and regulations to make decisions in the general manner of courts. I loved putting that definition in there because I had to read it like 5 times. So what that tells me is, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with legal stuff here, right? We have to be careful when we're dealing with anything legal. So with you all making decisions relative to private properties, what you're doing is you're basically making legal decisions, right? They're legal decisions. You have to be careful. So some things to think about, and I always like to tease boards that I work with, is you're not the look better board. So whenever board members get into discussions like, I like blue, or I think this is nicer and it looks better, we should never hear in a discussion from a board member that it looks better. That's not the kind of conversation that we want to have. We want to have conversations that we're sure that these things are established. Is it relevant to the topic? Is it a personal opinion based? Is this your opinion that we're talking about? It shouldn't be personal opinion based. It should always be based on your ordinance and what you're here to do. All applications, so going forward, modifying the staff reports a little bit, so you'll see for the next meeting. Initially, as we're working together, I'm going to kind of spoon feed you the suggested motions. And I could continue to do that if that's what the board is comfortable with, or the board could say, okay, after 3 meetings or so, we got this. We don't need to be spoon-fed. But basically, all applications should have a motion that says what the board is doing. The board is recommending, the board is denying, is the board recommending with conditions. You should actually be stating those words in your motion. So the board recommends approval, X, Y, Z. The other thing that you should have in your motions is when you're making a motion and you're recommending something, you need to follow it up with based on a finding that. So based on a finding that something is articulated in the ordinance. And when I say I'm going to spoon feed this to you, so as I'm doing the staff reports and I come to the conclusion I come to, I'm going to give you different suggested motions that you can pick from, just so we can make sure that everything is being cleanly done. And so now here's where I'm going to tell you a story, okay? So I had a meeting once with a historic preservation board that was dealing with a developer who wanted to demolish a building that was 50 years old. It had just reached the 50-year age. And the developer wanted to put up a new building that did not meet the development requirements. It just didn't meet the requirements. And so, I didn't even have a demolition application. So that was the first thing, because there was not supposed to be a new construction application without a demolition request. And because it didn't meet the minimum development standards, I was struggling as staff to put a staff report together. So if you could read between the lines, things were getting political. So I was having an issue with this. So what it came down to was, with this project, because it was in a downtown setting, even though it wasn't meeting the minimum development standards, that there was something that the board could do, which was legal, and that's called a defined public benefit. So if the project was determined to have some greater defined public benefit, then the board would have a reason to approve it. And so at the time, I was working with another developer who owned a building and did not own the parking in front of the building. And so this other developer, the first one I told you about, did own the parking in front of the building. So I thought, okay, well, that could be a defined public benefit. If we could work with the one developer to get that lot to be a public parking lot, then we could work with this developer on the project. This whole thing was articulated to the board. The meeting was 2.5 hours long on this. The attorney weighed in, their attorneys weighed in. We talked about this ad nauseum, okay? At the end of the meeting, the decision was made that, yes, we're going to allow this project to proceed because there is a defined public benefit with this land exchange and that all parties were happy, et cetera, et cetera. The board made the motion, closed out the meeting, everybody went home. The next day, I got called into a meeting to talk about this property, and I thought the meeting was going to be about the conveyance of this property, and the meeting was the attorney for the first developer saying, well, if that developer wants the property, they could buy it for, I think it was like $150,000. I was like, well, we talked about this in the meeting yesterday. Guess what the board didn't do in their motion?
Conditions.
They didn't articulate based on a finding that, and they didn't articulate exactly what they were approving. So what we walked away with was a demolished building with no demolition application, and the developer being able to do what they wanted that didn't meet the requirements of the code, and no defined public benefit, simply because none of that was in the motion. So that was a lesson learned, and that was, boy, for me, that was like 15 years ago. I've never forgotten it. So that's something that, and people were really upset because it's like, well, why did that developer get to do X, Y, Z? And, you know, because then developers that came in after that felt like they were aggrieved. And so it was really ugly. Luckily, there was not a lawsuit, but there very well could have been a lawsuit. So I just tell you that story to show you how important it is, because you could sit here and talk about something and really be passionate about it for 2 hours, 3 hours, but if your motion is not very, very clear, there's all kinds of things that can happen after the meeting that you don't want to see happen. And one other thing I wanted to say, and I might have said this at the meeting last month, but if I did, I'm just going to repeat myself, so forgive me. But if not, I think you'll see how important the role of what you all are doing. Yeah, you're volunteers, you're citizens, but this is a quasi-judicial board, and if you think about the population of St. Cloud overall, what is the population? Do you know offhand? Approximately? 61,000? Okay. So approximately 61,000. So you have a city council. How many members are on the council? 5. Okay. But normally. So 60.
After tonight, back to 5. Come on.
You got approximately 60,000 people. You have a 5-member city council. You have a 7-member historic preservation board. And then you have, I guess, 7 members for planning and zoning. Is that right?
5, 7.
7, okay. So add that up, right? That's all that gets to make the decisions for the city, because I understand CRA is also city council, right?
Plus 2.
Plus 2.
Okay, okay. But if you add that up, we're talking less than 25 people in the entire city are making all the decisions, representing 60,000 people in the city. So, you know, it is amazing. And, you know, I have board members who are like, oh, I'm just volunteering. It's like, no, you're doing a really important role. You're doing the work of the city. And so I want you to start looking at your positions in that way. It's not just like I have a couple of hours to kill, so I'm going to do this. These are really, really important things that you're doing. It's an important role you're serving. The decisions you're making are really important. And that's why I always try to impress upon boards is like, that's why we need to keep it as clean as possible and trying to keep everything as smoothly running as possible. But I always feel that that's so significant. And I think as board members, have any of you had those numbers cross your minds? Have you thought about it in that context? Don't you feel powerful now?
I was just saying to Paula, oh, the pressure.
So going forward, when you'll see next month when I do the staff report, I'm going to actually lay it out for you. And like I said, I won't be offended if by the third meeting you're like, really, Christine, we don't want you to spoon feed us like this. That's fine. It's just to make sure that we're operating like that in the new year. And, you know, some boards are like, yeah, we love this because we don't have to think about it, so keep doing it. And if you do want to change something, because of course things come up in discussion and you've got the suggesteds all listed out, I've worked with boards where the board chair will oftentimes keep track of things so they can articulate, like based on a finding that, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. So that way, before somebody makes a motion, there could be reminders of like, okay, these are the high points that we discussed. So this will make a lot more sense when we really start getting through and working on things. Any questions about that?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment of how I've seen this go terribly wrong when there aren't adequate findings in cases of any kind, and it goes up on appeal, and there's not an adequate record for the appeal body to make a decision on. And so the intent of the lower body is unknown because no one articulated it. And if it's not in the record, it doesn't exist.
And people think that, you know, and they're right, yes, this meeting is a record, but the legal record is that motion.
Correct.
Right.
And so people can make comments around the dais about this looks totally inappropriate and it doesn't meet the standards, but if that isn't either in the motion or stated as a finding, it doesn't exist in the action and it's lost.
Absolutely. Yep, totally. So that was actually all I had for this evening to go over with you all. We kept that at almost 45 minutes, 2 minutes over.
This is an excellent, excellent summary of Roberts.
Yeah, that's a great cheat sheet.
It is an excellent one.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yes, it is.
So homework for you all would be to look at the NAPC website, kind of dig around on there, send Jesse your email addresses, and then the other thing is to think about what kind of trainings or presentations you all might want to see in 2022 and to send me those suggestions so I could start thinking about them, because I would like to have that set at our next meeting, that's kind of the vision going forward with the work sessions for the year.
I have a question. Did we have one November hearing date that we still needed to resolve?
For next year, you mean? Yeah, the staff will work on getting it done, and we can bring it back next meeting in order to confirm that date on the schedule.
I just was checking my memory.
Yeah, we'll bring that last one back to you, and then we'll plan on not having a December meeting. I mean, if we wind up having to have a special meeting, we will, but for now, the plan would be no meeting in July and no meeting in December.
Of next year? Okay.
2022.
Yeah, you all committed to the December 2021 meeting.
Yes, on December 14th.
Yes. And the work sessions would start in 2022. So on December 14th,
Okay.
that would just simply be the regular
6
meeting at 6
o'clock.
p.m.
Yep,
Got it.
because it wasn't in the motion. Not a problem. So if that closes out item D then. So any other new business that needs to be brought forward that's not on the agenda? Okay. Absent that, we'll go to opening the floor to public comment. A little lightweight this month. We'll close out public comment and open for individual board member comments. Member Jones, we'll start with you, but we got the timer on you.
I've commented enough tonight.
Thank you. That's a great individual comment. We'll go on next. Member,
No, I've been very pleased with tonight's. was fantastic. I'll say no more. Mr. Chair.
Member Lamug, did you have an individual comment?
Nope, no additional.
Member Horning?
It was very good, yes, very good. The other thing about is that on November 20th at Mount Peace Cemetery, there's going to be a veterans celebration, and it's called A Walk Among the Stones. And so it's from 10 o'clock till 2 o'clock, a free event. And there are going to be probably 20 organizations that are represented there. We'll all have tables and so forth and hand out information about the city or about our organization. And it should be really very, very nice. So they've been working hard on it for several months. And so we'll see what happens on November 20th. So just wanted to let everybody know about that if they didn't already know.
Thank you. Member Stark?
I don't have anything tonight.
Member Bryant?
I just want to say thank you for all of your support. I really appreciate it.
Member Estill, did you have any?
Just wanted to say thank you for the presentation this evening, and thank you for the addition to the NAPC. I think that'll be a valuable asset to us.
You're welcome. Welcome to the board.
Thank you.
I have no individual comments, so I'll just hold till December. Informationally, obviously, our next meeting, even though on the agenda it says January, we made the motion, so our next meeting is December 14th at 6 p.m. And I will adjourn the meeting.